静まれドラ猫。ふい。
Day is a middle-aged man grappling with severe depression. He sees no hope or future in his life, leading him to a decision to end it. On a cold, rainy day, he and his lover, Sakin, walk together without an umbrella, eventually reaching a clearing by a raging river. The rain has made the river strong enough to sweep someone away, which is exactly what Dai was counting on. He and Sakin have grown weary of the world and plan to end it together by drowning in the river, thus fulfilling their promise to always be together. Before they jump, they tie their arms together as a symbol of their solidarity. However, just as they prepare to leap into the water, a truck appears out of nowhere and hits them, despite being in the middle of the forest. Dai awakens in a cathedral, disoriented by his surroundings. He assumes this must be the afterlife. A woman named Annette introduces herself and explains that he has been summoned to this new world as its hero. She directs him to look out the window, where mythical creatures like dragons roam. This world needs him to restore the light. However, Dai is not pleased. His only wish was to leave Earth alongside Sakin, who isn't with him now. Feeling like he has broken his promise, he decides to try ending his soul again and ingests an entire bottle of pills. Annette, horrified, uses magic to detoxify his body despite Dai's protests. When he regains consciousness, he expresses his desire to leave, but Annette insists he stand up and fulfill his mission as the world's savior. Annette, curious, asks if he was hit by a truck, and Dai recalls the incident. She reveals that Truxie, a truck she hired, is tasked with bringing unhappy people to this world for a second chance at life. Annette is bewildered by Dai's lack of enthusiasm, as most people are grateful for a new start. When she checks his stats, she is shocked to find his health and mana abysmally low. His only skill is level 5 depression, making him fragile and powerless. Annette, perplexed by this unprecedented situation, tries to console him, but Dai decides to leave the cathedral. Annette, feeling responsible, apologizes and pleads with him to stay, fearing he wouldn't survive outside. Dai thanks her but insists he's only looking for a place to pass on. Annette is taken aback by his determination to end his soul and realizes he might be different from the others brought to this world. When Annette first took her job, she was genuinely enthusiastic about guiding the summoned heroes on their journeys. However, many of these heroes were depressed gamers, particularly from the Warzone community, which made her task frustrating. Her job often devolved into stroking their egos to get them to accept their missions. With Dai, things felt different. As he prepared to leave, Annette dropped her staff and chased after him, pleading with him to at least choose a profession before departing. Duke turned to her and said there was no need for that. He was a natural-born writer and always would be. He then closed the door behind him, bidding Annette goodbye. Once Day left, Annette collapsed to the floor, realizing he was the kind of person she had been waiting for. Meanwhile, Dai wandered outside and tried to decipher a sign, but couldn't understand a word. Frustrated, he resorted to taking more pills. Suddenly, he heard a voice announcing that he had spotted a landmark and earned 5 experience points. Confused and in pain from his migraines, he tried to stop the noises in his head. Celebration music then played, indicating he had leveled up, which only worsened his headache. As Dai struggled with his discomfort, he heard a girl screaming for help. He turned to see a girl being attacked by a dead tree. She pleaded for his help as the tree's branches wrapped around her like tentacles. Instead of helping, Dai stood and watched, even asking if he could write a novel about the situation later. The girl, desperate for rescue, insisted he help. Dai tried, but failed to reach her, and the tree grabbed him by the neck, hanging him alongside the girl. As they dangled from the tree, Dai introduced himself and suggested they wouldn't last much longer. The girl blamed him for their predicament, explaining that the tree would soon suck the nutrients from their bodies, leading to their undoing. Dai seemed content with this fate, which frightened the girl. Just as Dai began to feel weak, the tree's branch strangling him withered away, causing the tree to die. They were freed as the tree disintegrated, but Dai was disappointed that he had once again failed to migrate. Despite his unintended victory, Dai leveled up again. The girl, both confused and amazed, thanked him for saving her, even though he felt he had done nothing special. She then invited him to her house to properly express her gratitude. Dai agreed, and as he took her dirty hand, he was reminded of Sakin, wondering if she might have ended up in this world, too. This thought gave him a new purpose, to find and reunite with Sakin so they could finally perish together. Dai returned to Annette's cathedral with a newfound determination. Annette was overjoyed to see him back, hoping for a chance to connect with him. However, when the cat girl who had invited Dai to her house appeared, Annette froze, shocked that Dai had already found someone. Dai explained that he wanted to find a girl named Sakin and hoped Annette might have some information. Annette, disappointed but understanding, admitted she had no clues about Sakin's whereabouts. With no other leads, Dai decided to follow the cat girl to her house, determined to find Sakin and fulfill his promise. The girl reassures Sensei, telling him there's still plenty of time to find Sakin. Since her house is quite a distance away, she suggests they take a break in the castle town of Roth. She then takes his hand to lead him there. However, Annette suddenly appears, objecting to such behavior in public. The cat girl is irritated, questioning Annette's presence and accusing her of abandoning her post at the cathedral to follow them. Annette reluctantly admits she is there to watch over the weak otherworlder she mistakenly summoned, denying any naughty intentions. The cat girl, realizing Sensei is from another world, is impressed by his strength, recalling how he saved her from the death tree. Annette, knowing Sensei's low stats, is skeptical, but the cat girl insists he must be strong to have defeated the death tree. And this news troubles Annette, as she fears it's the beginning of a romance between Sensei and the cat girl. While they argue, Sensei discovers a coffin that fits him perfectly. Feeling hard, he climbs inside, saying he needs a nap and asking to be woken when they reach town. He bids goodnight to Annette and the cat girl, who is annoyed that he still hasn't used her name. Annette jokes that Sensei likes her more since he remembers her name. Annette ties a rope to the coffin and starts dragging it. The cat girl questions whether Annette, as a clergy person, should be doing this, but Annette is focused on pulling the coffin regardless. Eventually, the rope snaps. The cat girl, tired of dragging the coffin, asks Sensei to walk, but there is no response. Sensei mentions enjoying the coffin ride, which the king misinterprets as a threat. Annette quickly changes the subject, complimenting Charlotte's beauty. The king reveals that Charlotte is to be married soon and asks for advice on choosing between two suitors. Refuses to make such an important decision, criticizing the king's judgment. The king is shocked, and Sensei turns to leave while Annette and the cat girl frantically try to, saying he isn't one to hold a grudge. Interestingly, the cat girl defends herself, saying it's cold and natural for her to seek warmth. As Annette and the cat girl bicker, Sensei leaves the room due to the noise. In the hallway, Sensei notices a beautiful light outside and goes to the lake, where he coincidentally, after a pause, Charlotte confides that she's torn between Gomes, the reliable warrior, and Adto, her childhood friend and minstrel. She feels pressured to choose Gomez for his strength, but she loves Adto's comforting presence. Sensei chuckles and tells Charlotte she's kind to worry so much about her father's opinion. He advises her to make a decision based on her own desires, just as he never lets others dictate his life despite his struggles, apologizing for the inconvenience, but announcing that Charlotte has finally chosen her husband. Annette believes Charlotte will choose Gomes, prioritizing the kingdom's needs, while the cat girl thinks Adto is a better match. Instead of turning to Adto or Gomes, Charlotte takes Sensei's hand and declares she wants to drown in the lake with him. The room is stunned, and Annette collapses in shock. Charlotte explains that after speaking with Gomes, who smelled bad, was never an option. The king urges her to reconsider marriage, but Charlotte snaps, criticizing the arranged marriage and expressing gratitude to Sensei for respecting her autonomy. Sensei now understands Charlotte's choice, but before he can respond, Gomez removes his helmet, revealing himself as a servant of the Dark Lord. His plan was to become king and hand the kingdom over to the Dark Lord, but Charlotte's declaration foiled his scheme. Sensei, curious, asks Charlotte if she suspected Gomez was a demon. She admits she had no idea and simply thought he smelled bad, realizing his blunder. Since Annette won't be waking up anytime soon, so she should be able to hold her own in a fight. Otto offers to play her a song to help, but it turns out it's just his latest tune, without any buffs attached. With no other choice, the cat girl begins attacking on her own. As Gomez charges at her, she ducks and kicks him across the face, following up with a punch, flying and prepares for a powerful attack to tear her apart. Before he can strike, Sensei distracts him, asking Gomes to finish him and Charlotte first. Gomes is initially skeptical, but Sensei explains that now that Charlotte is free from her father's control, her first wish is to end it all with him. Sensei is always ready for a chance to unlive, so he asks Gomes to grant this favor. Go the city to the ground afterward. Sensei doesn't care, but Charlotte starts to have second thoughts about dying, as Gomes charges to live and protect the kingdom. Sensei, glad to hear her true desires, pushes her out of the way to take the hit alone, as Annette wakes up just in time to cast a biss while she's around. As Gomez tries to break through the shield, he shatters his horns. Defenseless, Gomes is sent flying through the castle wall and into the lake by reconciling with Charlotte, who's happy her father finally understands her. Sensei, however, is frustrated that Annette and the cat girl ruined his chance to die. Later, Thomas abdicates the throne to Charlotte, who dedicates herself to keeping the kingdom safe. Otto continues making songs, and Annette and the cat made the decision for herself and stands by it, which he finds beautiful. Episode 3 opens with Annette and Catgirl dragging the coffin again. Vampire man Sakin gets out and asks for a breakfast burrito. Annette tells him, "Take this bread and piss off." She then informs Catgirl that it will take a few days to reach her hometown and requests that they travel to Viton Temple first. Catgirl asks why. Annette explains that other worlders usually arrive at one of the 4 temples and then head to the Dark Lord's castle to fight him. However, Sakin isn't looking for the Dark Lord's castle, he's searching for his wife. Therefore, they must visit the other temples. Annette adds that she doesn't want Sensei to fight the Dark Lord because she's scared for his life. Catgirl teases her, calling her a shrimp. Catgirl then asks if Annette quit her job. Annette says she resigned and didn't leave her post. Just then, her familiar shows up and spits something out. It's her letter of resignation. Annette realizes she's in trouble because she didn't officially resign. Sakin tames Annette's familiar and names him Melos. As Annette prays not to get in trouble, a massive dragon jumps on them, making them cower. A stranger calls the dragon by its name, Ryuka, and chants some gibberish to it. The monster calms down. Just then, Sakin gets out of his coffin and asks if it's lunchtime yet. Dragon Girl spots him, notices he's an otherworlder, and says she's gonna delete him. Annette and Catgirl acknowledge her power and start dropping bricks. They notice a symbol that identifies Dragon Girl as the wrathful Dark Lord. They try protecting Sakin, but realize their bodies have frozen. Sensei confronts Dragon Girl and tells her to leave them alone and take him instead, stating he's ready to go anytime. Dragon Girl accepts his wish, then reveals her name as Waldelia. As she's about to end him, Sakin starts flirting, saying he feels her pain. She realizes her attacks are ineffective and that she is also falling for him, so she calls her dragon over to aid her escape. Later, the squad is found lying in Sviton Temple. A priestess named Isha helps heal them back to full health. Moments after, Sakin goes shopping and downs an entire bottle of bleach. Catgirl gets angry and smacks him. He explains he was feeling too good and wanted a drink to dull himself back down. Meanwhile, Annette is talking to Isha, thanking her for saving them. The priestess asks why she is traveling with an otherworlder. Annette explains that he is special and tries not to make herself look like a shrimp. Just then, a fat beatboxer intrudes their conversation, rapping about how his God-given gift is mass production and how he produces coins out of thin air. Annette gets angry and throws the coins in his tomato-shaped face. He proceeds to run away like he's being chased by his uncle, crying like a baby. Annette and Isha continue their conversation. Isha tells her to leave Sakin because he reeks of impurity and evil. Annette defends him as if she is married to him. Isha asks what Sakin's special powers are. Annette says he has none, leaving Isha shocked. Annette then brags about how Sakin defeated the Dark Lord, but Isha interrupts, saying that the Dark Lord was already defeated 7 days ago. The scene shifts to Dragon Girl visiting her hometown, only to see from a distance that an otherworlder has conquered her castle and collected her father's soul. Back at the squad's base, Annette discusses with Catgirl that the real Dark Lord was vaporized 7 days ago. Catgirl realizes the coincidence that Sensei entered this world 7 days ago. They start making conspicuous theories. Meanwhile, Senpai Sakin tries to get some work done but can't. He says he has creator's block, and even though meeting Waldelia sparked his inner creativity, he can't seem to find the work ethic. Annette sees him being a miserable mope and asks to take him out shopping. They go out and Annette buys Sakin a set of shiny armor. Sakin feels oppressed, but that's exactly what turns him on, so he doesn't mind. As they leave him to nap in his armor, Isha passes by and tells him to stay away from her girlfriend. He responds that Annette is a free bird, unbound by any cage. She tells him to get lost. Just then, everyone hears a howling wolf. An otherworlder trots in on a giant white hellhound with the rest of his crew, including the fat rapper from earlier. The fatty introduces the blonde human to everyone as Suzuki. Suzuki tells the public that he baptized the Dark Lord and that they have nothing left to fear. Everyone rejoices at the sound of peace. But then Suzuki demands they worship him and bow down to him as their almighty, otherworldly leader. Fatboy notices Annette amongst the crowd and snitches to Suzuki about how she violated him. Suzuki walks up to her, calling her a bad girl, and pats her head. Then he says that he will make a real good girl out of her. Comment who you think eliminated Dragon Girl's father. Suzuki, with a commanding presence, approaches Annette and uses his power to make her fall to the ground, rendering her a slave to his will. Kotaro, an observer, admires Suzuki's skill, noting that the purer the target, the quicker they succumb. Tama, witnessing the scene, is shocked and enraged, demanding to know what happened to Annette. Kotaro explains that Suzuki's skill unconditionally turns anyone he pets into his slave, and Tama demands that the spell be dispelled immediately, and Suzuki intervenes, commanding Tama to calm down, asserting that no human or monster can resist his overpowered skill. Pet. Isha, a town leader, arrives and challenges Suzuki, declaring that the town of Vale will never surrender to him. The villagers rally behind her, expressing their defiance. Suzuki, undeterred, declares his intent to destroy the town and build a new kingdom, commanding his pets to attack the villagers. Panic spreads as Suzuki's pets charge, and Isha curses under her breath, calling Suzuki a bastard. Suzuki coldly corrects her, telling her to call him hero like she did when they first met, and arrogantly claims he will use her church as his castle. Sensei, a mysterious figure, watches the chaos with a calm demeanor. He comments on the unpredictability of attacks and asks if Isha has had enough. Frustrated and desperate, Isha responds with a curse. Sensei approaches her calmly and introduces himself again, expressing interest in Suzuki and a desire to base a novel on him. Isha, filled with despair, points out the true nature of otherworlders like Suzuki, who have become uncontrollable due to their greed and power. She explains that Suzuki was once a quiet, weak-willed man. Sensei takes notes, intrigued by Suzuki's transformation, and asks where Suzuki is now. Isha informs him that Suzuki headed toward the church. Sensei, with growing curiosity, asks Isha to look after Tama, and despite Isha's concerns about his lack of a gift and the dangers ahead, he remains confident. Sensei expresses his excitement about finally being able to write his masterpiece. Reluctantly, Isha decides to accompany him, despite her fear of Suzuki's power. As they approach the church, Isha formulates a plan involving poison to reduce Suzuki's forces. However, Sensei interrupts her, speaking directly to Suzuki. Isha, frustrated, curses the unpredictability of otherworlders. Suzuki turns to face them, recognizing Isha's involvement and Sensei's presence. Sensei introduces himself and states his interest in writing a novel about Suzuki. Kotaro, confused, questions this, while Suzuki believes Sensei wants to write about his heroic conquests. Sensei corrects him, explaining that he is interested in Suzuki's fall from power due to his greed. Suzuki, feeling insulted, orders his pets to kill Sensei. Isha warns Sensei of the danger using magic to defend them, but Suzuki orders his pets to burn them to death. As the situation escalates, Sensei remains calm, thanking someone named Melos for their assistance. Kotaro panics, realizing they are out of options, but Suzuki remains composed, revealing his most powerful pet. Sensei counters this threat, and a system voice announces that Sensei's poison has killed the great wolf instantly. Isha is amazed by Sensei's tactic of infusing his body with poison. Kotaro, terrified, calls Sensei a coward, and Isha urges Suzuki to surrender. Suzuki, refusing to give up, reveals his trump card, commanding Annette, now under his control, to kill Sensei. Isha tries to reason with Annette, suggesting they retreat, but Sensei believes in Annette's strength. Suzuki asserts that Annette is permanently under his control, but Sensei challenges this, stating that Annette's fate is her own to decide. Annette, struggling against Suzuki's control, turns to Sensei, who gently asks Isha to treat her wounds. Suzuki, realizing his defeat, despairs over his failed skill. Isha urges Suzuki to surrender, but Sensei prevents him from ending his life, reminding him of their conversation about the novel. Suzuki, confused and broken, listens as Sensei explains he cannot allow the story to end early, and asks Suzuki to share his story. In a series of flashbacks, Suzuki's past is revealed. He was always timid, bullied, and weak-willed. Even in this new world, despite being granted power, he couldn't escape his inherent nature. Suzuki reflects on his failures, admitting that someone who suffered constant failures in his old world, suddenly granted power and made a hero, would not save an alien world. He confesses that he could not even commit evil properly and remains a weak-willed nobody regardless of the world he inhabits. Isha, witnessing his vulnerability, whispers his name softly. Sensei, satisfied with his narrative, concludes his story. He thanks Suzuki for the inspiration, acknowledging the story's completion, but lamenting that it cannot be called a masterpiece. Annette notices a magic circle for summoning an otherworlder, indicating that Suzuki has been sent back to his own world. Isha and Annette discover that Sensei now has a special skill, writing, storyteller, which likely activates against otherworlders. Sensei, reflecting on his failure to write a masterpiece, wonders if he will find another subject to excite his sensitivities. Isha, confused by Sensei's true nature, asks about Suzuki's fate in his own world. Sensei responds that Suzuki's story in his world is not over, and it is up to him whether it becomes a masterpiece. Isha agrees, realizing the story's potential continuation. In Suzuki's world, a shopkeeper reviews his resume, noting his dropout status, and hires him out of sympathy, giving Suzuki another chance at life. As Kitty lays down, she dreams of you sitting on her and liking the video. Meanwhile, Annette is waiting to squash you unholy if you forget to comment why you deserve Part 5.